We got, not to mention, the whole livestock thing. Actually, Shannon's out with the chickens right now. Welcome, everyone. We're live. Welcome to our Success Mastermind for Friday, the 8th of July, 2022. John's here with you, as always the case on Fridays. Since it's Fun Friday and we're all out of uniform, and we're going to have a lighthearted discussion today. I'm not dealing with problems like I dealt with yesterday, so I'm in a better mood, I suppose. But I ended my day or my night last night with laying in bed with my daughter, giving her some cuddle time or whatever, and she wanted to read jokes to me, and so she pulled out this book, jokes, cursive. So you get to learn how to write in cursive, and of course it's riddles and jokes. And so she just goes through. She read me, I don't know how many of these last night, and I was like, "You've got to go to sleep now. Stop talking." Right. So we turned out the lights, and eventually she went to sleep. But what did the frog order at the dinner? French fries and a Diet Coke. There you go. Here, wait, there's more. There's a whole book of these, and some of them are actually pretty funny. Why did the scientist take out his doorbell? He wanted to win the Nobel Prize. There you go. Let's just go to random spots in the book. Oh, why was the math book sad? It had too many problems. All right, one more. Which alphabet letter helps you duplicate yourself? The W. Now you know. All right. So actually, this is good stuff. Good family-friendly fun right here. We'll do more of that next week. Anyway, want to talk with you a little bit today about what it's worth. You ever hear that saying of, well, we've got such and such for what it's worth? I hear myself saying that all the time. And our next book that we're going to be getting into is a Dale Carnegie book in our book study group, Stop Worrying and Start Living. And this correlates to that here in just a moment. Hey, Missy. Hey, Lynn. Hey, Lindsay. Hey, Daisy. Hey, everybody. Welcome to you. But the idea that we can actually stop and evaluate for what it's worth, right? So-and-so advised you to do this for what it's worth, right? I've got an opportunity to spend my time doing that. You see, this is a good question for us to kind of ask ourselves, or to, I guess, append onto things that we're considering, decisions that we're, looking to make, right? What is it worth? Now, we've covered before the idea of opportunity cost, that if I say yes to this, I say no to that. For me to say yes to this, there's an opportunity cost. I can't do all things at all times in all places, right? Anyway, so there's got to be some evaluation of what it's worth. Is it worth more? In the question of evaluating this versus that, is it worth more for me to participate or to not participate? One example, which I already kind of gave you a little innuendo about, was with things like advice or instructions. Okay, I know a lot of people right now looking for let's say something they could do to increase their income, income streams, or additional businesses, as if people aren't already working round the clock, in the face of modern economic debacles and everything else that's going on by our moral superiors or whoever's running this show. But there's lots of things that you could be considering, let's say, in that realm, where you could be getting data, information, right? And this has been called the information age or the misinformation age. But when evaluating data, right, is this good and right for me to do? Is this something I should follow? And in other words, to answer the question for what it's worth, there's three different kinds of advice or data that you will receive, whether you want to or not. And the first kind is that of the critic. And again, we've covered this before, but we're going to cover it again because it's important to learn. And a lot of times the critic has, they're very forceful and they want to be very convincing. They want to be heard like anybody else. Okay. But they really want to be heard. So they're going to give you, here's what's wrong. Here's why it doesn't work. In fact, nothing works. The critic never actually accomplishes anything, but they definitely want to be heard. What's that worth to you? I was just listening to, forgive me, okay, I was just listening to some commentary on some of the things that are going on in the world, and solutions weren't offered, but a good amount of criticism was offered. And while I may agree with what the orator was saying, I'm thinking, does this empower me? Do I feel like now I can go out and make something happen? Because I just spent my attention on this, right? I invested attention. And so now am I feeling more able or something? Oh, no, I'm not. So is that, for what it's worth, is that empowering me? Is that helping me be more effective within my circle of influence and expanding out into my circle of other concerns? No. So we got to be careful for that, because it's easy to go into agreement. And each of us have buttons. Okay. So there's things that you would, that could send you into a frenzy. For me, it's things like, hearing about, child abuse and some of the, like, injustice, right? That's a pretty common button for a lot of people. Injustice. Ooh, right. Just as a general term, I'm not going to go too deep into that psychological rabbit hole, but the first kind of input that we could accept or reject is that of criticism. The second kind is that of academia, right? So we know about, or whoever the source of the information is, or the advice or the instruction knows about such a thing. They can, understand the definition of the words or whatever, and they studied studiously, and they may occur as pedantic, and in some ways instructive, but no practical application, theory only. Typically second, third party regurgitated theory, which they themselves haven't, it doesn't bear fruit in their own experience. And there's an old saying, by their fruits you shall know them. So you got to be a fruit inspector, right? That's, I guess, another subtitle to this whole thing today is, for what it's worth. All right, well, did you inspect the fruit? What is it worth? That's the second type of advice that you could take. The third type of advice, and the only one I think you should take, is advice from someone who knows enough, not just academically, to be able to recite something, but who knows enough about it to have actually succeeded. There's fruit on the tree. What's that worth? I'd say all chips in on that. All chips in. That doesn't mean you don't continue to learn for yourself and experiment and do some heuristics or whatever, but that does mean that you could save yourself a bunch of time. And the interesting thing about this too is that think of if you place these three categories on a scale, okay, so critic, academic, success experience, right? If you place them on the scale of, let's say, emotion, right? Which feels the best to you? Well, definitely, that success, that state of confidence, certainty, that's what's speaking to me. You actually can feel that. And so we can get a sense of what it's worth, not just because of the words, not just because of the script or whatever, but because of, we communicate as beings, and people and all this, we communicate with more than just words. And there is an impression, to go back to 1910, the Science of Getting Rich, there is an impression of increase that we get when we are in the presence of people who are about advancement, increase, right? Certainly not just about criticism, or certainly not just the very banal academic, here's fact and only fact, right? But when we're in the presence of results-oriented people, we actually feel it, do we not? And that can give us a sense of value, of worth, right? Think of this. When we're considering where am I going to place my attention? If we're aware of our own consciousness to some degree and our own emotional state, that's a beautiful guide. Now, I'm not saying that there haven't been people, bamboozling, shyster and scam artists and all that. I mean, that exists too. But there's a big difference between having an encounter with someone who's authentically, they're just about success, advancement. You get the impression of increase, versus the person who's covertly hostile and, putting that smile, that fake smile on their face. You've seen the difference many times. Okay. So it's a different feeling. In one case, here's a successful person. You feel an impression of increase. You feel more confident yourself. In the other case, fake smile, but you're not quite sure. What's this person's intention? Right? There's something not right. Now, in Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill talked about the 13th principle, which is the sixth sense. And once you've developed sufficiently the other 12 principles, this one becomes more useful for you. And we can cite example after example of, they just had a hunch. And then, there's the magic. We all have that already. I mean, it's not like, that program wasn't installed, into your computer brain or something when you showed up here, right? We've all got it. Now, many of us have become so engrossed in the mundane that, we can't hear it. Right now, where I sit in this room, there are all kinds of radio frequencies going on in this room. I can't hear any of them. I'm not tuned in. But if I did tune in, I'd be able to hear one of them. And if I changed the frequency, I'd be able to hear a different one, but not that one I was listening to before. This is why it's so important to control our attention. There's this idea that we've been given dominion, right, over the beasts of the earth and et cetera, et cetera. Well, if there's any one thing that we definitely acknowledge and accept, the fact that we've got responsibility for and therefore dominion over, it's our own thinking. And I'll tell you what, as long as I've been practicing, I guess just like a doctor practices medicine. Okay. So as long as I've been practicing, being conscious and awake, oh man, this one's still some work. Because look at me, right? All the things that impinge upon our attention via our 5 physical senses. But when you know. Now, some of you here with us live right now, I've had the pleasure and the privilege, and I'm not saying that just to flatter you, okay, but I know you personally, and I love you. I think you're amazingly able and powerful and visionary and purposeful and the kind of people I want in my life. I perceive that because, I've got whatever filters, whatever oil changes I've had over the last 30 something years of studying philosophy and getting to know people, I can perceive things. Okay. Here's the question though, especially for those who have felt like, perhaps enough of the world hasn't perceived that of you, right? You're looking to make your mark. You're looking to establish large customer bases and grow and scale up your enterprises and all this. And you're wondering, what could you do? Here's what you could do in considering what it's worth. In the whole, I guess, gamut of business, entrepreneurship, life, livingness, right? In the whole gamut of that, there is a law of exchange, and it's very easily observable in things like I've mentioned before, the tide, right? So ocean, this much water goes out, this much water comes in, right? There's an exchange, outflow, inflow, outflow, inflow. And where a lot of people have placed, let's say, excessive value, relatively speaking, excessive value on their deliverable. I'm Bob the plumber, and the plumbing is what I do. That's my business. No, that's your deliverable. But insufficient attention on promotion, outflow, impinging upon the public, setting up a communication line, developing a rapport, a presence in the marketplace, right? So that stuff, for what it's worth, is worth a lot. And I'll tell you what. Well, I spent years, decades, whatever, being learning to be the best plumber. Well, guess what? Best known beats best. I don't like hearing that either. By the way, I don't like hearing that either. I sometimes think about you talented people and how much bigger your reach could be if you shifted some attention from your deliverable, or heavens forbid, right, the distractions, into how can I make my mark, make myself known to my ideal target audience. And of course, to the critics as well. And there you go. Right there. That's the number one thing that holds people back, is that consideration. If I really reach, if I really put myself out there, what will they think? Which they? The other experts, the other people who speak from experience and success, the academics, they just got their face buried in a book. They don't even know you exist. The critics, is that what you're concerned with? What the critics think? Well, what's that worth? Elbert Hubbard said, to avoid criticism, do nothing, say nothing, be nothing. Okay, so, and here's the, to go back a little bit earlier than that, like a couple of thousand years earlier, here's what Lao Tzu said. He said, those who speak do not know, those who know do not speak. Now let's take that back into our hierarchy of critic, academic, and successful advice, right? So the critic, who is very forceful and sometimes covert, but very attached to the idea of getting their criticism through to you, talking in scathing comments and whatever, right? So that person, they're talking, do they know? Lao Tzu was right. How about that successful person who can give you a couple lines and with all goodwill, with no attachment to, you follow my advice, you cannot follow it, whatever. Here's the impression of increase. They say less, or they talk less, but they say a lot more. Lao Tzu was right. So then I gotta look at myself. Okay, so back to the idea of the book that we're about to jump into. Once we conclude Proctor's book, You Were Born Rich, this coming week, then we're going to jump into Dale Carnegie, Stop Worrying and Start Living. So here's all my talking, for what it's worth. And I've got thoughts, and I've got criticisms, and I've got worries and anxiety and inner dialogue and outer dialogue, right? I've got it all, for what it's worth. Sometimes one of the most liberating things I can do, and I had to do this yesterday. Because yesterday, if those of you who were with me, and if you weren't and you see the replay, you'll know I had a thorn in my side yesterday. I had a morning of that just turned to shit, that. It was one of those days, the shoelace day, where everything, and then the shoelace breaks. I didn't break a shoelace, okay? They make shoelaces better these days. Out of like synthetics, not, hemp or whatever. But I had one of those days, and I was like, all right, John, all right. Who keeps showing up at the scene of the crime? I mean, right? I made a smoothie yesterday. I was like, you know what? F it. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to banana, give me the strawberries, the protein powder, some of the green vegetable stuff. And I'm going to do it. And like the thing came up, you know, spilling out. I was like, oh, everything I touch. And I'm very meticulous. I'm very, you know, specific, super clean, spotless, right? And like stuff is spilling. I said, this isn't me. Who is showing up here? And so what I had to do, and this was very liberating, two things for what it's worth. Okay, the first thing I had to do was get the big rubber stamp out, the big red rubber stamp that says bullshit, right? And rubber stamp, here's all the stuff, all my considerations and thoughts about, you know, how my day is going. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and stamp all that, and we're going to hit the reset button, and I'm going to disqualify myself from participating in evaluation of what I think is going on in my life. Disqualified myself. John, whatever you think right now is wrong. Stop it, stop it, stop it. I just devalued my own considerations. And that gave me a little bit of space. Okay, so no matter what I'm thinking right now, it's bullshit. Stop it, right? I mean, you could observe the thoughts if you want, but just know that you're wrong. You're wrong. Okay, good. So I'm wrong. Now, what could I do to be right? Well, I've got these projects that I haven't produced on. Let me go accomplish something. Oh, but I'm not feeling inspired. I shot 5 videos yesterday. We're gearing up TikTok channels. Okay, so I shot 5 videos yesterday. And I wasn't inspired, but I just, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to, I didn't have my makeup on or anything. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to pick up 5 topics, sales tips, 5 tips to improve your sales now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I just wrote down 5 things. And now I wasn't stopped anymore. I just produced something. I just produced 5 video topics. Oh, well, you know what? I could word that title a little bit differently. That sounds good. And then that one there, right? And holy crap, I got an iPhone in my pocket and a little thing I could set up here, a little stand, and I don't know, it might be crap, but I'm just going to go ahead and shoot it. 5 videos, done. Guess how my attitude was after that? High integrity John right here. I'm back. Why? Because I placed, number 1, I suspended judgment on my own thinking. Okay. And number 2, I did something purposeful. I did work, 4-letter word. I did it to the point of done, D-O-N-E, done. You know, who are we betting on now? My own worth to myself and to the marketplace rose. So sometimes, and I know this is a cliche, but if I can assign this to myself after decades, you can eat it up too. Okay. Sometimes we just got to get out of our own way. Sometimes we have to admit that, you know what, my best thinking sucks in this moment. It's not an eternal condemnation or anything, but right now, we're going to go ahead and hit the reset button. Okay. Anything you think right now is invalid. It's not worth anything. You're being the critic. Right. So everything we just said about the critic and how you don't want to take their advice, when you're in that seat, own it. I stopped taking my own advice and my day got immensely better. And then I just did, you know, having done this plenty of times, I just did purposeful action. Right. That is my go-to. Like some people, you know, the whole idea of workaholism, right? They just work. Okay. That is, while resourceful, it's also in some way a therapy to, you know, to not be immersed in the anxieties, the worries. I mean, there's this saying that idle hands do the devil's work. That's what came up for me yesterday. Right. Here I was in all my considerations, not working. Stop it. Go do something, go produce something. And then you'll see that you have, and you'll feel better. Now we have something of worth. But me sitting there being critical of myself or whatever, worthless. So I'm excited about getting into this next book, Stop Worrying and Start Living. I've never read it before. I've only read one Dale Carnegie book that I can recall in my life, and it was How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it was meh, in my opinion, meh. But this one has come up like multiple times in the last couple of weeks. Like, we got to read this. So we're going to get into it. And then we're going to get into whatever Missy wants. So you guys want one more joke, and then we're going to open it up for what it's worth. What is a tornado's favorite game to play? Twister. Now you know. All right, guys. Missy, Catherine, Daisy, Edward, Linda, Lynn, Lindsay, Mandy. You guys got any thoughts for what they're worth? Hi, Missy.
Well, my friend, the whole time you were talking, I was thinking, well, those are all out. The people you gave us, the three people, they're all outgrowths of ourselves, And the critic is the low vibration, frustrated, couldn't accomplish, doesn't want to give up its power over you. The paradigm, right? Doesn't want to give it up. So it's got to keep bringing down your vibration. Soon as that smoothie maker went up, your vibration was shot. The academic is perhaps, well, we got all this knowledge in our head. We know everything what to do, and we let everything else impinge upon the time because either we don't know what to do, we're afraid to do it, so we're not applying the knowledge. And as soon as you applied the knowledge and got to work, you raised your vibration back up. And the successful person who has achieved is our higher self, who we already are. If you just take yourself out of linear time for a minute, you just got to catch up to that person and just be as that person is. And we just catch ourselves doing this. That's the key to changing these old habits. And when it's outside of you, okay, if you're listening to someone who's a business expert like you, that's very different. Yes, listen to that person. But if it's the other, you just got to close your ears, just walk away, turn around. And especially if it's you as the critic. Like you say, walk outside, look at a tree, look at a leaf. Don't get completely switch around 180 degrees. And by the way, I say no more smoothies for you for at least a week. You sound very dangerous in the kitchen. But that's basically it. It's all these parts of me that have been holding me back for so long. And I never knew that I was actually had this capability. Guess where I found it? This platform. So, and many things have happened because of that. So that's what was on my mind. And thank you for letting me share it.
Thank you. Normally I'm fine with the blender. It's just, it was yesterday. It was, the wrong guy was showing up. Thank you, Missy. Look at these glowing people, happy faces. There's Catherine, Lynn, there's Mandy and Lindsay. Good to see you guys. Any other thoughts on this, on what it's worth? What your own thoughts are worth? Interestingly, my uncle, who some of you know, George Lavenia, wrote What You Think Is What You Get. The original title for that book was going to be Thoughts and Other Waste Products. So, but he changed the title anyway. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, everybody's smiling, so you look good. I guess everybody's doing great. Anything you want to add to this, be my guest. Thank you, Missy, for your participation. I am going to be back here with you at 6 p.m. Eastern U.S. time for a little get-together called Be Heard, where you can be heard. You can talk about whatever you want. For that matter, you can complain for what it's worth. And, you're going to be walking around all day saying for what it's worth. Interesting. Yeah. Don't take this to neurotic extremes where you need to evaluate everything, but at least have some evaluation, right? Because it's your life that you're exchanging for whatever you're putting your attention on. So anyway, love you guys. We got work to do. I'm going to be back here in a few hours. And of course, hey, if you're seeing this on YouTube and you're like, wow, I need to get into this conversation, that's a worthy thought. You can go to jlsuccessmastermind.com, grab yourself a trial membership. You are going to love it. Guaranteed. All right.